I never thought a Thursday morning in September would be the day I understood what my son really thought of military service. But there I was, standing on the tarmac at Nellis Air Force Base outside Las Vegas, watching my 30-year-old son Derek walk away from me toward the flight line, and I realized he'd been lying to me for 6 months. My name is Robert Dalton. I'm 54 years old, and I spent 22 years in the United States Air Force as a combat search and rescue pilot. I flew Pavehawks in Afghanistan, Iraq, and places I still can't talk about. I pulled 17 wounded soldiers out of hot zones under enemy fire. I have 3 Purple Hearts, a Distinguished Flying Cross, and a medical retirement after a Taliban RPG shattered my left leg in 2011. That Thursday morning started the way most Thursdays had started for the past year and a half, since Derek's wife Michelle died. I drove from my apartment in Henderson to Derek's place in Summerlin at 6:15 in the morning to watch my 5-year-old grandson Tyler while Derek went to work. Derek was a single dad now, and I helped where I could. Tyler met me at the door in his dinosaur pajamas, holding his stuffed triceratops. "Grandpa, can we make pancakes?" "Sure thing, buddy. Where's your dad?" "Getting ready. He has an important meeting today. Something about the F-16 squadron." Derek came downstairs in civilian clothes, khakis and a button-down shirt. He worked as an aviation maintenance contractor at Nellis, or so I thought. Been doing it since Michelle passed. Good money, normal hours, home every night for Tyler. That's what he'd told me. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something." Derek's voice had an edge I recognized from my years in command. The tone people used before delivering bad news. "Can it wait until tonight? I need to get Tyler to pre-K by 8:30. "No, it can't wait." Derek sat down at the kitchen table. "Tyler, buddy, can you go watch cartoons for a few minutes? Grown-up talk." After Tyler bounded into the living room, Derek looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. "Dad, I need you to come to the base with me today. Bring Tyler. There's something I need to show you." I frowned. "You want me to bring a 5-year-old to Nellis during your workday? What kind of meeting is this? Just trust me. Please. Be there at 10:00 hours. Gate 7. I'll have you on the visitor list. And Dad, wear your dress blues if they still fit." "My dress blues?" "Derek, what the hell is going on? Just do it. Please, it's important." He left before I could ask anything else. I sat there in his kitchen, confused and a little angry. Wear my dress blues to an aviation maintenance meeting? Nothing about this made sense. But I did it. I picked up Tyler from pre-K at 9:30, drove back to my apartment, and dug my Air Force dress blues out of the back of my closet. They still fit, mostly, a little tight in the waist, but nothing obscene. The medals felt heavy on my chest. I hadn't worn them since my retirement ceremony 3 years ago. Tyler was fascinated. "Grandpa, why are you wearing your superhero costume?" "It's not a superhero costume, bud. It's my uniform, from when I was in the Air Force." "Like my dad?" "Exactly like your dad, except I was starting to wonder if Derek was really just a contractor." We arrived at Gate 7 at Nellis at 9:55. The security guard checked my ID, looked at my uniform, and snapped to attention. "Welcome back, Colonel Dalton. It's an honor, sir." "I'm not a colonel anymore, Sergeant, just Mr. Once a colonel, always a colonel, sir. Your son's expecting you. Head to Hangar 14. There'll be someone there to escort you." Hangar 14. That was fighter squadron territory, not where maintenance contractors worked. A young captain met us at the hangar. "Colonel Dalton, Captain Sarah Bennett. I'll be your escort today." "Right this way, sir." "Captain, what exactly is going on here?" "With respect, sir, I think it's better if you see for yourself." She led us through the hangar. Tyler held my hand, wide-eyed at the F-16s parked in neat rows. 24 fighter jets, maybe more. Crew chiefs working on engines. Pilots doing pre-flight checks, and there in the middle of it all was Derek. But he wasn't wearing khakis and a button-down. He was wearing a flight suit, Nomex, sage green, with patches on the shoulders and chest, and the name tape across his chest read, "Dalton." I stopped walking. "Captain Bennett, is my son a pilot?" "Yes, sir. He's been flying with the 4th Fighter Squadron for almost 2 years now, upgraded to flight lead 6 months ago, one of our best." The world tilted. 2 years? Derek had been lying to me for 2 years? Why would he lie about being a fighter pilot? That's not something you hide. That's something you shout from the rooftops. I was so proud when I pinned on my wings. Why would Derek keep this from me? Derek saw me and walked over. His face was calm, but I could see tension around his eyes. "Hey, Dad. Hey, Tyler, my little man." Derek scooped up his son, who immediately grabbed at the patches on his flight suit. "Daddy, you look like Grandpa." "Yeah, buddy, I guess I do." Derek set Tyler down and looked at me. "I know you have questions. I'll answer all of them. But first, I need you to come outside. There's something I want you to see." He led us out to the flight line. The sun was bright, the desert heat already building even in September. 6 F-16s sat on the taxiway, engines running, the whine of turbines filling the air. Pilots in cockpits, crew chiefs standing by. "This is my flight," Derek said. "We're running a training sortie today, standard air-to-air tactics, but I asked for permission to do something different, something I should have done a long time ago." "Derek, what are you talking about?" "Dad, do you remember what you told me when I was 18 and said I wanted to join the Air Force?" I remembered. I'd told him no. I'd told him to go to college, get a degree, live a normal life. I'd seen too much combat, pulled too many broken bodies out of wreckage. I didn't want that for my son. "I told you not to," I said quietly. "I told you to be anything but a pilot, right? And I listened. I went to UNLV, got my engineering degree, got a good job, married Michelle, had Tyler. I did everything you wanted. I was a good civilian. But Michelle got sick. Ovarian cancer. Stage 4. The medical bills were insane even with insurance. We burned through our savings in 8 months. I took out loans, sold everything we had. It wasn't enough. And then one day I was sitting in the hospital watching my wife die, and I realized I'd spent my entire adult life being who you wanted me to be, instead of who I was supposed to be." Derek's voice cracked slightly. "After Michelle passed, I was lost. Tyler was 2.5. I was broke, grieving, and had no idea how to be a single dad. Then I remembered something Michelle said before she died. She said, 'Derek, don't let your father's fear stop you from flying. If you want to be a pilot, be a pilot. Tyler needs to see his dad chase his dreams.' So I applied to officer training school, got accepted. Went to pilot training at Columbus Air Force Base in Mississippi. Tyler stayed with Michelle's parents for a year while I was training. It was the hardest year of my life being away from him. But I finished top of my class, got my first choice assignment, F-16s. I stared at him. "You've been a fighter pilot for 2 years and you didn't tell me?" "Why, Derek? Why lie about it?" "Because I knew you'd try to talk me out of it. Because I knew you'd give me the same speech about danger and death and all the reasons the Air Force destroys people. And I couldn't hear that, Dad. I needed to do this for me. For Tyler, for Michelle." One of the other pilots approached, major in a flight suit, older than Derek, maybe 40. "Colonel Dalton, I'm Major Pete Rawlings, 4th Fighter Squadron Commander. Your son is one of the finest young pilots I've had the privilege to lead. He's got natural talent, but more than that, he's got heart. The kind you can't teach." Major Rawlings looked at Derek. "You ready for this, Dalton?" "Yes, sir." "All right, let's give the Colonel a show he won't forget." Derek knelt down in front of Tyler. "Buddy, Daddy's going to go fly now. You're going to watch with Grandpa, okay? You're going to see me do something really cool." Tyler nodded seriously. "Are you going to fly like Grandpa used to? Even better, if Grandpa taught me anything." Derek stood and faced me. His hand came up in a perfect salute. "Colonel Dalton, permission to take off, sir." I was too choked up to speak properly. Just nodded and returned the salute. "Permission granted, Captain." Derek walked to his jet, climbed the ladder, strapped in. The canopy came down. And then, one by one, 6 F-16s taxied to the runway. Captain Bennett handed me a radio headset. "You'll be able to hear the tower communication and the pilots on this frequency, sir." Tyler sat on my shoulders, his hands gripping my head, watching intently. The first jet thundered down the runway and lifted off, climbing steeply into the Nevada sky. Then the second, the third. Derek's jet was 4th in line. I watched him advance the throttle, release the brakes, and accelerate. At 150 knots, the nose came up. At 180, the wheels left the ground. And my son, my Derek, flew. They climbed to 15,000 feet in formation. 6 jets, perfect spacing. The radio crackled with pilot chatter. Professional, calm, efficient. Derek's voice among them. "Viper 3, check right. Copy, lead. Looking good. Viper 4, cleared to maneuver. Viper 4, cleared. And then Derek's voice came through clearly. Dad, this one's for you. His jet broke formation, rolled inverted, pulled vertical, climbed straight up until it was just a tiny cross in the sky. Then the nose came over and he dove, afterburner lit, screaming back toward the earth at 600 knots. At 2,000 feet he pulled out, the G-forces pushing him down in the seat, and leveled off directly in front of where we stood on the flight line. The other 5 jets joined him. They flew in a tight formation, 6 F-16s side by side, directly overhead at 500 feet. The sound was deafening, glorious, overwhelming. Tyler screamed with delight. Grandpa, did you see that? Did you see Daddy fly? And then they did something I'd never seen in 22 years of military aviation. They broke formation, all 6 jets, and each pilot individually rocked their wings, the military salute to another aviator, to a fellow warrior. They were saluting me. My vision blurred. I couldn't stop the tears. These pilots, these young men and women, were saluting an old broken rescue pilot who hadn't flown in years. And my son, my Derek, was leading them. The jets landed 20 minutes later. Derek was the last one down. After he taxied in and shut down, he climbed out and walked toward us. His flight suit was soaked with sweat, his hair plastered to his head, but he was smiling wider than I'd seen since before Michelle died. Tyler ran to him. Daddy, that was so cool. You flew so fast. Did you like it, bud? It was awesome. Derek looked at me. What did you think, Dad? I couldn't speak for a moment. Finally managed to say, that was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Why didn't you tell me? Why hide this? Derek's smile faded. Because of what you said when I was 18, you told me the Air Force would break me, that combat would destroy me, that I'd end up with nightmares and injuries and regrets. And I believed you for 12 years, Dad. I believed that being a pilot meant being broken. But after Michelle died, I realized something. You weren't broken because you were a pilot. You were a pilot because you were trying to save people. Every single mission, you were risking your life to bring someone else home. That's not destruction. That's sacrifice. That's honor. I became a fighter pilot because of you, not in spite of you. Everything I know about leadership, about courage, about putting the mission first, I learned watching you. You're my hero, Dad. You always have been. I just needed to prove to myself that I could fly before I showed you. I needed to know I wasn't living in your shadow. I pulled him into a hug. My son, the fighter pilot. Derek, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I made you think you couldn't follow your dreams. I was just scared of losing you like I lost so many of my crew. But you're right. You're absolutely right. This is who you're supposed to be. We stood there on the flight line, 3 generations of Daltons. Me in my dress blues with my faded medals, Derek in his sweat-stained flight suit with his new wings, Tyler in his dinosaur t-shirt with his stuffed triceratops. And for the first time in 3 years, since that RPG took my leg and my career, I felt whole again. Major Rawlings approached. Colonel, we'd be honored if you'd join us in the squadron bar for the debrief. We don't usually invite civilians, but you're not a civilian. You're family. The squadron bar was exactly as I remembered from my own flying days. Photos on the walls of past missions, past crews, past victories. A piano in the corner that nobody played well, but everybody played anyway. The smell of coffee and jet fuel and camaraderie. Derek bought me a beer. Technically against regulations during duty hours, but retirement has its privileges. We sat at a table while the other pilots filed in, Tyler drawing pictures at the end of the table. Major Rawlings stood at the front. All right, let's talk about what just happened up there. Dalton, that vertical climb was solid. Timing on the rejoin could have been tighter. Yes, sir, working on it. And the wing rock salute. That wasn't in the flight plan. No, sir, it wasn't. That was a personal decision. The Major smiled. Good personal decision. Colonel Dalton, your son tells me you flew Pave Hawks in some of the hairiest combat zones we've operated in. That true? I nodded. Did my share? Yes, sir. Your share and then some, from what I've read in your personnel file. Distinguished Flying Cross for pulling 6 Rangers out of a surrounded compound in Helmand Province while under heavy fire. Is that right? It was 8 Rangers, sir. And the citation says 6, because 2 of them didn't make it long enough for me to get them to the hospital. That's not a success. That's a failure. The room went quiet. Derek looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Major Rawlings sat down across from me. Colonel, can I tell you something? When your son applied to OTS, we do background checks. Family history, financial records, the whole 9 yards. Your name came up. War hero, multiple combat deployments, medical retirement with full honors. Any other squadron would have jumped at the chance to have your son. Legacy families are gold in the Air Force. But I almost rejected his application. Why? Because when I called you for the family interview, do you remember what you said? I remembered. I told the major that Derek was making a mistake, that he had a young son who needed him, that military aviation would chew him up and spit him out broken. I'd practically begged the major not to accept him. I told you not to take him, I said quietly. Right. You told me your son was too soft, that he couldn't handle the pressure, that he'd crack under stress. And I thought, here's a father so traumatized by his own service that he can't see his son's potential. So I called Derek back and asked him one question. I asked him, if your father forbids you from doing this, will you still apply? And do you know what he said? I shook my head. He said, my father doesn't forbid me from anything. He guides me, he protects me, he loves me, but I'm not my father. I'm Derek Dalton, and I'm going to be the best fighter pilot you've ever seen, with or without his blessing. So I accepted him. And I watched him for 2 years, watched him struggle through pilot training while missing his son, watched him push through the grief of losing his wife, watched him earn the respect of every single pilot in this squadron. And you know what I learned? What's that, Major? Your son isn't you. He's better. He's everything you taught him to be, plus everything Michelle taught him, plus everything his own pain and loss taught him. He's a complete package. And the reason I wanted you here today, the reason Derek wanted you here, is because he's not just a fighter pilot anymore. As of 0900 this morning, Captain Derek Dalton has been selected for early promotion to major and reassignment as an instructor pilot at the Fighter Weapons School. Congratulations, Derek. The room erupted in applause. Derek's face was a mixture of shock and pride. Sir, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything yet, there's more. Derek, you're also being put in for the Air Medal for your performance on a classified mission last month. I can't tell your father the details, but suffice to say, you did something extraordinary under extreme pressure, and you saved lives, just like your old man used to do. I looked at Derek. You flew a combat mission. He nodded. Can't talk about where or when, but yes. Dad, I've been deployed twice in the last 2 years, 3-month rotations. Tyler stayed with Michelle's parents. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd worry yourself sick, but I'm okay. I'm more than okay. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. The rest of the debrief was a blur. Pilots talking tactics, discussing angles and speeds and radar signatures. Tyler fell asleep in my lap, exhausted from the excitement. And I sat there listening to my son speak the language I'd spoken for 22 years and realized he'd found his tribe, his purpose, his calling. After the debrief ended, Derek drove us back to his house in Summerlin. Tyler woke up long enough to eat chicken nuggets and then passed out again on the couch. Derek and I sat in his kitchen, the same kitchen where this whole day had started 8 hours earlier. Why now? I asked. Why tell me today? Derek poured coffee. Because Tyler starts kindergarten next week, and kindergartners have career days where parents come talk about their jobs. Tyler's been asking me for months what I do for work. I've been telling him I fix airplanes. But last week, he asked me why I have pictures of jets in my room if I don't fly them. Kids notice everything, Dad. I couldn't keep lying to him. And if I was going to tell Tyler the truth, I needed to tell you first. What happens when you deploy again? Derek took a sip of coffee. I've got a plan. When I'm instructor at the weapons school, deployments are rare, maybe once a year. When I do go, Tyler stays with Michelle's parents like always. They love having him. And when I get back, I make it count. Quality time, not quantity. That's what Michelle used to say. It's not about how many hours you're present. It's about what you do with the hours you have. I felt the weight of my own failures pressing down. I was never good at that. When I came home from deployments, I was so messed up I could barely talk to you. You were dealing with your own demons, Dad. That wasn't your fault. But I learned from watching you. I learned that trauma doesn't make you weak. Carrying it alone makes you weak. So I see a therapist, once a week. Air Force pays for it. I talk about Michelle, about combat, about the pressure. And it helps. You're stronger than I ever was. I'm not stronger. I just have better tools. The Air Force has changed, Dad. We take mental health seriously now. We don't pretend we're invincible. We admit when we're struggling. It's okay to not be okay, as long as you're working on it. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Finally, I asked the question that had been eating at me all day. The wing rock salute. Was that your idea or Major Rawlings? That was me. I talked to the other pilots last week. Told them about you. About what you did in Afghanistan. About the 17 lives you saved. About the Purple Hearts. About how you lost your leg pulling a sergeant out of a burning helicopter. Every single pilot in that formation volunteered to salute you. They wanted to honor you, Dad. Because you're one of us. You're a warrior. And warriors take care of their own. I had to look away so he wouldn't see me crying again. Derek put his hand on my shoulder. Dad, I need you to understand something. I didn't become a pilot to prove you wrong. I became a pilot to prove you right. Everything you taught me about courage, about sacrifice, about putting others first, that's why I fly. That's why I chose fighters. Because when the call comes, when someone needs help, I want to be the one who shows up. Just like you always did. The next morning, I drove to Nellis again. This time without Tyler, without my dress blues. Just me in jeans and a t-shirt. I found Major Rawlings in his office. Colonel Dalton, twice in 2 days. To what do I owe the pleasure? Major, I wanted to apologize for trying to stop Derek from joining, for not seeing what you saw in him, for letting my own trauma blind me to his potential. Major Rawlings leaned back in his chair. Colonel, can I tell you something off the record? My father was Army, infantry, Vietnam, 3 tours. He came home with PTSD so bad he couldn't hold a job. Drank himself to death when I was 16. When I told my mother I wanted to join the Air Force, she begged me not to. Said the military destroys men, turns them into ghosts. But I joined anyway. And you know what I learned? The military doesn't destroy people. War destroys people. Trauma destroys people. The military is just the vehicle. But it's also the vehicle for honor, for brotherhood, for purpose. Your son understands that. He knows the risks, he accepts them, and he's chosen to serve anyway. That's not naivety, that's bravery. The Major stood and extended his hand. Your son is going to be a great instructor. He's going to teach the next generation of fighter pilots not just how to fly, but why to fly. And part of that, why, comes from you. So don't apologize, Colonel. Be proud. You raised a warrior. I shook his hand. Thank you, Major, for giving him a chance, for seeing what I couldn't, for making him better than I ever was. He was always better than you, Colonel. He just needed permission to prove it. Over the next 6 months, I watched Derek thrive. He moved into his new role as an instructor pilot at Nellis. I'd pick up Tyler from school 3 days a week, and we'd go watch the jets fly. Tyler could identify every aircraft by sound now. That's an F-16, Grandpa. That's an F-15. That's an F-35. He was 5 years old and he spoke fluent aviation. Derek started bringing Tyler to the squadron on weekends. Let him sit in cockpits, meet the crew chiefs, learn about jets. Tyler was in heaven. And Derek was alive in a way I hadn't seen since before Michelle got sick. He'd found his purpose. One Saturday in March, Derek called me. Dad, can you come to the base tomorrow? There's something I want to show Tyler, and I want you there too. What is it? Just trust me, be there at 1000 hours. The next morning, Derek met us at Hangar 14. He was wearing his dress blues, full honors, medals, the works. Tyler was confused. Daddy, why are you wearing your fancy uniform? Because today's a special day, buddy. Today, Grandpa's going to do something he hasn't done in a long time. Derek led us through the hangar to where a helicopter sat, rotors folded, freshly painted. It was a Pave Hawk, my old aircraft, F-16, the same model I'd flown in combat. I stopped walking. Derek, what is this? This is 4673, retired from active service last year. The Air Force was going to scrap it, but I called in some favors, had it restored. She's not flight-worthy, but she's museum quality, and I wanted you to see her. I walked closer. The paint was perfect. Flat grey, the colour of storm clouds. The tail number matched a bird I'd flown in Afghanistan. Not my regular bird, but one I'd taken up on emergency medevac missions. Derek opened the crew door. Go ahead, Dad. Sit in your old seat. I climbed in. The cockpit smelled like grease and hydraulic fluid and memories. I sat in the pilot's seat, hands falling naturally to the controls. Cyclic in my right hand, collective in my left, pedals under my feet. Even though the engines were cold and dead, I could feel the phantom vibration of rotors turning. Derek climbed into the co-pilot's seat. Tyler sat in the crew chief's seat behind us, eyes wide. "Is this Grandpa's airplane?" "That's right, Bud. This is where Grandpa used to work, where he saved people." Derek looked at me. "Dad, do you remember the mission that ended your career? The one where you lost your leg?" I remembered. It was burned into my brain. October 14th, 2011. Helmand Province, Afghanistan. We got a call that a convoy had hit an IED. Multiple casualties. We launched in bad weather, 50-knot winds, near zero visibility. When we got there, the convoy was taking small arms fire. Taliban in the hills. My crew chief, Sergeant Ramirez, was on the minigun, keeping their heads down while I hovered. We got 5 guys loaded. Then the medic called up. "One more. He's bad, Colonel. He's not going to make it if we don't move now." So I held the hover. Ramirez was yelling that we were taking fire. And then the RPG hit us, blew through the cargo compartment. Shrapnel took my left leg off below the knee. Ramirez caught some in his arm, but we didn't go down. I flew that bird 23 miles to the field hospital on one leg, and pure adrenaline. Got all 6 guys to the docks. 5 of them lived. 1 didn't. He coded on the operating table. Derek was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "The guy who didn't make it. Sergeant First Class Marcus Webb, 28 years old, married, 2 kids. "Yeah. How do you know that?" "Because one of my instructor students last month was Captain Emily Webb, fighter pilot, top of her class. I saw the name and asked if she knew Marcus. Turns out she's his daughter. She was 7 when he died." My chest tightened. "She's a pilot?" "She's not just a pilot, Dad. She's one of the best I've taught. And when I told her that you were the pilot who tried to save her father, who got him to the hospital, who flew with a shattered leg to give him a chance," she broke down crying. She asked if she could meet you. Derek pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. A young woman in a flight suit, dark hair pulled back, confident smile. "She looks like him, she does, and she told me something I think you need to hear. She said her father used to tell her that dying in service isn't a tragedy. Dying without purpose is a tragedy. He knew the risks, he accepted them, and when he went down he was protecting his guys. That's what soldiers do. That's what you do. That's what I do. Marcus Webb didn't die because you failed, Dad. He died because he made the same choice you made, the same choice I make every time I strap into a jet. He chose to serve, and you gave him 23 more miles. 23 miles where the medics could work on him, where his buddies could say goodbye, where he could have a fighting chance. That's not failure, that's heroism." I couldn't speak. Tyler climbed into my lap. "Grandpa, are you sad?" "A little bit, buddy, but it's okay to be sad sometimes." "Is that why you don't fly anymore, because you got hurt?" "That's part of it. But also when you get older, you have to let younger people take over, like your dad. He's a better pilot than I ever was." Derek smiled. "I don't know about that, but I learned from the best." "Dad, there's one more thing. Captain Webb asked if she could give you something. I arranged for her to be here today. Is that okay?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. 10 minutes later, Captain Emily Webb walked into the hangar. She was young, maybe 25, with her father's eyes and her father's determined expression. She stopped when she saw me sitting in the helicopter and snapped to attention. "Colonel Dalton, Captain Emily Webb reporting, sir." I climbed down from the bird, leg brace creaking. "At ease, Captain." She relaxed slightly, but her eyes were bright with emotion. "Sir, I know this might seem strange, but I wanted to meet you. I've heard about you my whole life. My father wrote letters to my mom from Afghanistan. In his last letter, the one that arrived after he died, he talked about you. He said you were the finest pilot he'd ever flown with. He said if anything happened to him, he trusted you to get him home. And you did, sir. You got him home, Captain. I'm sorry, I tried to save him." "You did save him, sir. You don't understand. My father wasn't supposed to be on that convoy. He volunteered to take someone else's place because the other guy's wife just had a baby. My dad did that all the time. Took the dangerous jobs so other people could stay safe. That IED wasn't random. It was waiting for a convoy. My father knew the risks. And when you flew into that hell to get him out, when you took that RPG and kept flying, you gave him something precious. You gave him a warrior's death. You didn't let him bleed out in the dirt in a foreign country surrounded by enemies." You got him to doctors, you got him to his brothers. My mum got to bury him at Arlington with full honors. I got to grow up knowing my father died a hero, not a casualty. You did that, sir. You gave us that gift." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small metal object. "This is my father's dog tag. My mom gave it to me when I commissioned. I've carried it on every flight since I got my wings." She pressed it into my hand. "I want you to have it, sir. Because you carried my father when he couldn't carry himself, it's only right that you carry a piece of him now." I looked down at the dog tag. Sergeant First Class Marcus Webb. Blood type O positive. Methodist. The metal was warm from being in her pocket. "Captain, I can't accept this." "Yes, sir, you can. Because my father would want you to have it. And because you need to know that what you did mattered. The 5 guys you saved that day, they went home to their families. They had kids. They lived lives. That's because of you, sir. Don't ever forget that." She saluted. I returned it. And then she hugged me. This young captain I'd never met before, whose father I'd tried and failed to save 14 years ago. She whispered, "Thank you for bringing my daddy home." After she left, Derek put his arm around my shoulders. "Dad, do you understand now?" "Understand what?" "Why I fly. Why I serve. It's not about glory or adventure or proving anything. It's about being there when someone needs you. It's about making the choice to stand up and say, 'I'll go.' Even when it's dangerous, even when it's scary, even when you might not come back, because someone has to, and if not us, then who?" That night, Derek, Tyler, and I had dinner at my apartment. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and meatballs. Tyler talked non-stop about sitting in Grandpa's helicopter. Derek was quiet, thoughtful. After we put Tyler to bed in my spare room, Derek and I sat on my balcony overlooking the Las Vegas lights. "I'm proud of you," I said. "I know I didn't say it before. I was too scared, too wrapped up in my own trauma. But I'm saying it now. I'm proud of you, Derek. You're everything a father could hope for in a son. You're brave, you're skilled, you're compassionate. You're a better man than I ever was." Derek smiled. "You gave me that, Dad. All of it. You think you failed because you came home broken, but you didn't fail. You showed me what sacrifice looks like, what courage looks like, what it means to put others first. I watched you struggle with PTSD. I watched you fight through the pain of losing your leg. I watched you rebuild yourself into someone new. That's strength, Dad. Real strength. Not the fake tough guy stuff. The real thing. The getting up every morning even when you don't want to thing." We sat in silence, watching the city lights blur into the desert darkness. Finally, Derek said, "I want to tell you something I've never told anyone. When Michelle was dying, when I was sitting in that hospital watching the love of my life fade away, I wanted to give up. I wanted to just stop trying. What was the point? She was going to die anyway. Tyler would grow up without a mother. Nothing I did mattered. And then I remembered something you told me when I was a kid. I'd failed a math test, felt like an idiot. You sat me down and said, 'Derek, life isn't about never falling. It's about what you do after you hit the ground. Do you lie there and quit, or do you get up and try again? That's what separates people who make it from people who don't. The getting up part.' So I got up, I kept showing up at the hospital. I held Michelle's hand. I told her stories. I made her laugh when I could. And when she died, I got up again. I kept showing up for Tyler, I kept trying, and eventually I realized I needed to fly. Not because it would bring her back, but because it would give me purpose. It would make me the dad Tyler deserved. A dad who chased his dreams instead of hiding from them. You taught me that, Dad. You taught me to get up. And now I'm teaching Tyler the same thing. When he falls off his bike, I don't pick him up. I wait and see if he'll get up himself. And he does. Every time. Because he's learning what you taught me. Life knocks you down. You get up. That's the only rule that matters. In the weeks that followed Emily's wedding, Derek started opening up to me about things he'd never shared before. We'd sit on his back porch after Tyler went to bed, drinking coffee and watching the summer thunderstorms roll across the desert. He told me about his first solo flight in an F-16, how his hands had shaken on the stick, how he'd thought of me the entire time, wondering if this was what I'd felt the first time I took a helicopter up alone. He told me about the night Michelle died, how he'd held her hand as the monitors flatlined, how Tyler had been asleep in the hospital room's corner chair, 3 years old and exhausted from days of watching his mother fade, how Derek had made a promise to her, in those final moments. I promised her I'd live, Dad. Not just exist. Actually live. Chase the dreams I'd buried. Be the man she fell in love with, not the scared version I'd become. And he told me about his first combat mission, the one Major Rawlings had mentioned but couldn't detail. It had been in Syria, Derek finally admitted one night. A downed pilot, F-16, ejected over hostile territory. Derek's flight had provided top cover while the rescue birds went in. But the Taliban had shoulder-fired missiles. The first Pave Hawk took a hit and had to abort. Derek's voice got quiet. I was listening to the radio, Dad, hearing the rescue pilot call off the approach, hearing the downed pilot on his survival radio saying he could hear enemy trucks approaching. And I thought about you, about all the times you flew into situations just like that. And I realized that's why we're here, that's the whole point. So I broke protocol, went low, used my targeting pod to mark enemy positions for the second rescue bird, painted 3 technical trucks with my laser. The Pave Hawk came in, got the pilot out. I took some small arms fire, nothing serious. But afterward, the rescue pilot called me on the radio, said, "Thanks for having our backs, Viper 4. Your dad would be proud." I didn't know what to say. Derek, that was incredibly dangerous. I know, that's why I didn't tell you. But Dad, in that moment, I understood something I'd never fully grasped before. When you came home broken, when you couldn't sleep, when you'd wake up screaming from nightmares, it wasn't because you were weak. It was because you'd seen things, done things, carried weight that most people can't even imagine. And you did it anyway. You kept flying anyway. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing I've ever known. The next day, Derek took me to meet his therapist. Dr. Sarah Chen had an office off base, a quiet place with comfortable chairs and shelves full of books. Derek had been seeing her for 3 years, since before he even started pilot training. "Dad, I want you to meet Dr. Chen, and I want you to consider seeing someone too. A professional, someone who understands military trauma." I was resistant at first. I'd spent 3 years telling myself I was fine, that I'd handled my PTSD on my own, that I didn't need help. But Dr. Chen asked me one question that changed everything. "Colonel Dalton, if your son came to you and said he was struggling with nightmares and anxiety and survivor's guilt, what would you tell him?" "I'd tell him to get help, to talk to someone, to not carry it alone." "Exactly. So why is it different for you?" I started seeing her twice a week, and slowly, painfully, I began to process things I'd buried for years. The faces of the men I couldn't save, the sound of that RPG hitting my bird, the feeling of my leg being torn apart, the guilt of surviving when others didn't. Dr. Chen helped me understand that trauma isn't something you get over. It's something you learn to carry differently. One session, about 2 months in, I broke down completely. I told her about a mission I'd never told anyone about. It was 2009, Kandahar. We got a call about a school that had been hit by a suicide bomber. 23 kids dead, dozens more wounded. We flew in to evacuate the worst cases. I spent 4 hours that day pulling children out of rubble. Some of them were already gone. Some of them died in my helicopter. One little girl, maybe 7 years old, grabbed my hand and wouldn't let go. She died holding my hand, Dr. Chen. She died, and I couldn't save her, and I've carried that for 15 years. Dr. Chen let me cry. Didn't try to fix it or minimize it, just let me feel it. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Colonel, you gave that little girl something precious in her final moments. You gave her human contact, kindness. She didn't die alone in the rubble. She died held by someone who cared. That matters. It doesn't make it hurt less, but it matters." I started sleeping better after that. The nightmares didn't stop completely, but they became less frequent, less intense. I could think about my career without drowning in guilt. And I realized Derek had been right. Getting help wasn't weakness. It was survival. Meanwhile, Tyler was growing up fast. 6 years old now, in first grade, smart as a whip. He'd started asking hard questions. "Grandpa, why do you have a fake leg?" So I told him. I told him about Afghanistan, about the mission, about choosing to help people even when it was dangerous. I kept it age-appropriate, but I didn't lie. Tyler deserved the truth. And then he asked the question I'd been dreading. "Grandpa, is Daddy going to lose his leg too? Is he going to get hurt like you?" I looked at Derek, who'd been listening from the kitchen. Derek came over and knelt down in front of Tyler. "Buddy, Grandpa got hurt because he's a hero. He saved people. And yes, sometimes pilots get hurt. Sometimes they don't come home. But we do this job because it matters, because people need us. And Grandpa taught me to be brave, just like I'm teaching you. But what if you die, Daddy? Tyler's voice was small, scared. Then you'll know I died doing what I loved, doing something important, and Grandpa will take care of you, and you'll grow up knowing your daddy was brave, just like Grandpa, just like you're going to be. Tyler thought about this, then he said, I want to be a pilot too when I grow up. I want to save people like you and Grandpa. Derek hugged him. Then we'll teach you everything we know, buddy. Everything. That conversation stayed with me. Tyler was 6 years old and already understanding sacrifice, already grasping that some things are worth the risk. I wondered if I'd understood that at 6. Probably not. But Tyler had grown up different. He'd lost his mother. He'd watched his father deploy. He'd learned early that life is fragile and precious and short. The squadron held a family day in August. Spouses and kids invited to come see where their pilots worked. Tyler was beyond excited. He wore his favorite Air Force t-shirt and brought his toy F-16. Derek gave him a tour of the hangar, introduced him to the other pilots, let him sit in a real cockpit. Tyler was glowing. One of Derek's fellow pilots, Captain Rodriguez, knelt down to talk to Tyler. You want to be a pilot like your dad? Yes, sir. I want to fly fast and save people. Rodriguez smiled. That's a good goal, little man. Your dad's one of the best. You're lucky to have him. Tyler looked up at Derek with pure adoration. I know, he's my hero. Later, Rodriguez pulled me aside. Colonel, your son talks about you all the time. About your career, your missions, what you taught him. You know he keeps a photo of you in his cockpit? From your retirement ceremony. Says it reminds him why he flies. I didn't know that. I didn't know any of that. The months passed. Fall came, then winter. Tyler turned 7. Derek continued excelling as an instructor, teaching young pilots not just tactics but philosophy. Why we fly, why we serve, why we risk everything. And I continued healing, slowly rebuilding myself into someone who could carry the past without being crushed by it. In December, Derek got orders, 6-month deployment to an undisclosed location in the Middle East. He'd be leaving in January. Tyler took it hard. He was old enough now to understand what deployment meant. To know his dad would be gone for a long time. To know there was danger. The night before Derek left, we had dinner at his house, just the 3 of us. Derek had already said his goodbyes to friends and co-workers. This was our time, family time. We ate pizza and watched Tyler's favorite movie. And then, after Tyler went to bed, Derek and I sat in his living room and talked. I'm scared, Dad. Derek's voice was quiet. I've deployed before, but this feels different. Tyler's older now. He'll remember this deployment, and the mission set is more dangerous. We're going to be pushing into contested airspace, higher risk. I wanted to tell him it would be okay, that he'd be fine, that he'd come home safe, but I'd been in combat. I knew better than to make promises I couldn't keep. Instead, I said, being scared is good. It means you're taking it seriously. It means you'll be careful. It means you'll make smart decisions. Derek, you're the best pilot I've ever seen. Better than I was. Trust your training, trust your wingmen, and call me when you can, even if it's just to say you're okay. I need to know you're okay. Derek nodded. And if something happens, if I don't come back, promise me you'll take care of Tyler. Promise me you'll tell him about Michelle, about me, about why this mattered, I promise. But you're coming back. You have to come back. That boy needs his father. I need my son. Derek smiled. I'll do my best, old man. That's all any of us can do. The next morning, I drove them to Nellis. Derek was in his flight suit, bags packed, ready to deploy with his squadron. Tyler clung to him at the flight line, crying. I don't want you to go, Daddy. I know, buddy. But Daddy has a job to do, important work. And while I'm gone, you're going to be the man of the house. You're going to help Grandpa. You're going to be brave, okay? Tyler wiped his eyes. Okay, I'll be brave like you. Derek hugged him one more time, then hugged me. Take care of him, Dad. Take care of yourself. We'll be fine. You just focus on the mission and coming home safe. Derek saluted me. Old habits. I saluted back. And then he was gone, boarding a C-17 with his squadron, flying off to war. The next 6 months were the longest of my life. Tyler and I fell into a routine, I moved into Derek's house to make things easier, got Tyler to school every morning, helped with homework every night. We video called Derek twice a week when he had connectivity. Brief calls carefully monitored for operational security. Derek couldn't tell us where he was or what he was doing, just that he was okay, that he missed us, that he'd be home soon. But I could see the strain in his face, the exhaustion, the weight. He was flying missions, dangerous ones. I recognized that look. I'd worn it myself for years. All I could do was be there for Tyler, keep things normal, keep him feeling safe and loved. Tyler struggled. He had nightmares about his dad not coming home, about losing another parent. One night he woke up screaming. I rushed to his room and found him sitting up in bed, crying. "Grandpa, I had a dream that Daddy's plane crashed. He's not coming back, just like Mommy didn't come back." I held him, just held him and let him cry. Then I said, "Tyler, I can't promise you nothing bad will ever happen. Your dad's doing dangerous work, but I can promise you this. Your dad is the best pilot in the Air Force. He's smart, he's skilled, and he's careful. And he loves you more than anything in this world. He's fighting to come home to you every single day. What if it's not enough? What if he tries his best and it's still not enough? Then we'll deal with it together, you and me. We're family, Tyler. We're Daltons, and Daltons don't quit. No matter what happens, we get up, we keep going. That's what Grandpa taught Daddy. That's what Daddy's teaching you. And that's what you'll teach your kids someday." Tyler fell asleep in my arms that night, and I sat there in his darkened room, holding my grandson, praying to a God I wasn't sure I believed in anymore. "Please bring my son home. Please don't take him from this boy. Please let me be wrong about the danger. Just this once, let me be wrong." 3 months into the deployment, we got a call, not from Derek, from Lieutenant Colonel Rawlings. "Colonel Dalton, I need you to sit down." My blood ran cold. "What happened? Is Derek okay? He's alive, but his aircraft took damage during a mission last night. Enemy fire. He made it back to base, but it was close, very close. The jets are right off, but he walked away. Some cuts and bruises, but he's okay." I couldn't breathe. How close? If he'd ejected 30 seconds later, he wouldn't have made it. The canopy was compromised. "But Colonel, your son did something extraordinary. His wingman's aircraft had lost hydraulics, was going down. Derek stayed with him, talked him through an emergency landing at a forward airfield, then made it back to base himself on fumes. He saved his wingman's life. We're putting him in for a medal. I didn't care about medals. I just wanted my son home safe. Can I talk to him? Not right now, he's being evaluated by medical, but he asked me to call you, to tell you he's okay, to tell Tyler he's okay. He knew you'd worry. Tell him we love him. Tell him to be careful. Tell him to come home." "I will, Colonel, I will." I didn't tell Tyler about the close call. Just told him Daddy had called, said he was fine, missed us terribly. But Tyler knew. Kids always know. "Grandpa, something bad happened to Daddy, didn't it?" I couldn't lie to him. Not about this. "Something dangerous happened, yes, but Daddy handled it. He's a great pilot. He did his job and he's safe." Tyler nodded. He was scared, but I could see him processing it, accepting it, choosing to be brave, just like his father, just like his grandfather. 2 weeks later, Derek video called. He had a black eye and stitches on his forehead, but he was smiling. "Hey, Dad. Hey, Tyler. You okay?" Derek laughed. "I'm fine. Looks worse than it is. What happened?" "Daddy had a little adventure, but everything's okay now." Tyler stared at the screen. "Daddy, were you brave?" "I was, buddy. I was scared, but I was brave. That's what Grandpa taught me. You can be scared and brave at the same time." The deployment finally ended in June. Derek came home tanned, thin, exhausted, but whole. We picked him up at Nellis. Tyler ran to him, and Derek dropped his bags to catch his son, spinning him around. "Daddy, you came back?" "I told you I would, buddy. I always keep my promises." They stood there on the tarmac, father and son, holding each other like they'd never let go. And I stood off to the side, watching, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders that I'd been carrying for 6 months. My son was home. My family was whole again. That night, after Tyler finally fell asleep, Derek and I sat on his back porch. He was quiet, processing. Finally, he said, "I thought I was going to die, Dad, when that missile hit. I thought, this is it. This is how it ends. And all I could think about was Tyler, about him growing up without me, about breaking my promise to come home. What did you do? I flew. That's all you can do in those moments. You fly. You focus on the mission. You remember your training. And you pray you're good enough. You were good enough this time, yes, but next time, who knows? That's the reality of the job. That's what you lived with for 22 years. I finally understand why you tried to stop me from flying. Because you knew this feeling, this terror of almost not making it home. But you did make it home, and that's what matters. You did your job. You saved your wingman. You kept your promise to Tyler. Derek, that's all any of us can do. We do our best. We fight to come home. And we pray it's enough. Derek nodded. I'm glad I flew, Dad. Despite the fear, despite the danger, I'm glad I chose this. Because that night, when I saved my wingman, when I talked him through that emergency landing, I knew why I wear this uniform. It's not about the flying, it's about the guy next to you, the brothers and sisters who have your back. That's what matters. That's what it's all about. 3 months later, I stood in the audience at Nellis Air Force Base for Derek's promotion ceremony. He stood at attention while Major Rawlings, now Lieutenant Colonel Rawlings, read the promotion order. By order of the Secretary of the Air Force, Captain Derek Dalton is hereby promoted to the rank of Major, effective this date. Congratulations, Major Dalton. Derek's new oak leaf insignia was pinned on by 2 people. Lieutenant Colonel Rawlings pinned one, and I pinned the other. My hands shook slightly as I attached the gold leaf to his uniform. My son, the Major. My son, the fighter pilot. My son, the instructor. My son, the single dad doing what I'd been too afraid to let him do. After the ceremony, there was a reception in the squadron bar. Tyler ran around with the other pilots' kids, high on cake and excitement. Derek stood with his fellow instructors, swapping stories and laughing. And I sat at the bar with a Coke, watching it all, feeling a contentment I hadn't felt in years. Captain Webb approached and sat next to me. Colonel Dalton, congratulations on your son's promotion. Thank you, Captain. Congratulations on finishing the weapons school. I heard you graduated top of your class. She smiled. Someone had to uphold the Webb family tradition. My dad was top of his Ranger class. Figured I should do the same. She paused, then said, Can I tell you something? Of course. I'm getting married next month. Air Force guy for 15 pilot, good man. And I wanted to ask if you'd walk me down the aisle. My mum's boyfriend is great, but he's not military. He doesn't understand. But you do. You knew my dad. You tried to save him. That makes you family. I was speechless. Captain, I'm honored, truly, but are you sure? You barely know me. I know enough. And my dad would have wanted it. He used to say that the guys who fly into hell to save you become your brothers. Blood isn't what makes family. Sacrifice is. You sacrificed for my dad. That makes you family. The wedding was beautiful. Small ceremony at a chapel on Nellis, followed by a reception at the officers' club. I walked Captain Emily Webb down the aisle in my dress blues, my medals catching the light. Derek stood in the audience with Tyler, and when the chaplain said, Who gives this woman to be married? I said, Her father, Sergeant First Class Marcus Webb, and I do on his behalf. Emily cried. Her new husband, Captain Jake Morrison, shook my hand afterward and said, Thank you for honoring Marcus. Emily talks about him all the time. She was so young when he died. She barely remembers him, but she remembers the stories about you, about the pilot who wouldn't give up, who flew a shot-up helicopter 23 miles on one leg. Those stories kept Marcus alive for her. Thank you for that. That night, Derek and I stood outside the officers' club, watching the desert stars. Tyler was asleep in Derek's car, exhausted from dancing at the reception. It was a good day, Derek said. It was. Derek looked at me. Dad, do you have any regrets? About your career? About how things ended? I thought about it. About the pain and the trauma and the nightmares. About the leg I'd lost and the men I couldn't save. About the years I'd spent thinking I'd failed. And then I thought about Derek in his flight suit. About Emily Webb and her twin boys. About Tyler in his fighter jet pajamas dreaming of the sky. About the 17 people I'd pulled from death. About the second chances I'd given them. About the lives they'd lived because I'd refused to quit. No, I said finally. No regrets. Not anymore. All of this was worth it. Every mission, every scar, every nightmare. Because it led here. To this moment. To you. to Tyler, to understanding that we don't serve for medals or glory. We serve because someone has to. And we serve because the people we save get to go home. They get to have lives. They get to have kids who become pilots and teachers and scientists and artists. That's the mission. That's what it all means. We give people tomorrow. Derek smiled. That's the best answer I've ever heard. Come on, let's go home. We walked across the tarmac together, 3 generations of Daltons, and I realized something profound. I wasn't broken. I never had been. I'd been bent by the weight of what I'd carried. But bending isn't breaking. Bending is how you absorb the impact so others don't have to. Bending is how you protect the people behind you. And sometimes, when you bend far enough, you discover you're more flexible than you ever knew, stronger than you ever imagined, more resilient than you ever believed. That night, I sat in my apartment looking at the photo Derek had given me years ago. 6 F-16s in formation, wings rocked in salute. And I finally understood what that salute meant. It wasn't just for me. It was for every person who'd ever worn the uniform, every person who'd ever chosen to serve, every person who'd ever walked toward danger when wisdom said to run. We're all bent, every single one of us. The weight of service, the cost of courage, the price of sacrifice. It bends us, changes us, shapes us into something different than we were before, but it doesn't break us. As long as we have each other, as long as we remember why we serve, as long as we pass the torch to the next generation, we'll never break. We'll just keep bending, keep adapting, keep flying. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. 5 years passed like water through fingers. Tyler grew into a confident 11-year-old who could name every military aircraft in service and explain their tactical capabilities. He joined the Civil Air Patrol, started taking ground school classes, dreaming of the day he'd be old enough to actually fly. Derek made lieutenant colonel and took command of the 65th Aggressor Squadron, training pilots from all over the world in air combat tactics. And I finally found peace with my past. The nightmares didn't go away completely, but they became manageable. The phantom pains in my missing leg faded to occasional twinges. And the guilt over the men I couldn't save transformed into something different. Not absolution exactly, but acceptance. Understanding that I'd done everything I could, that sometimes doing everything isn't enough, and that's okay. That's part of being human. Emily Webb made major and became a flight commander. She had her twins and then, with Jake, had a daughter they named Michelle, after Derek's late wife. It was Emily's idea. She said Michelle Dalton had given Derek the push to chase his dreams, and in doing so, had indirectly influenced Emily's own career. It was a beautiful gesture that made Derek cry when they told him. I still saw Dr. Chen once a month, not because I needed intensive therapy anymore, but because those sessions had become a space to process life, to check in with myself, to make sure I wasn't sliding back into old patterns. She'd become a friend, in a way. Someone who'd seen me at my lowest and helped me climb back up. One afternoon in late April, I was at home when Derek called. "Dad, can you come to the base? There's something happening. You need to be here. What's going on? Just come. Please. Bring your dress blues." An hour later, I walked into Hangar 14 for what felt like the 100th time. But this time was different. The entire squadron was assembled. Not just Derek's squadron, multiple squadrons. Hundreds of pilots and crew chiefs and support personnel. In the center of the hangar sat the restored Pave Hawk, my old HH-60, gleaming under the lights. Derek met me at the entrance, also in dress blues. He was smiling that smile again, the one that meant he'd been planning something. "Dad, welcome. What's all this? This is your legacy ceremony." Before I could ask what that meant, Lieutenant Colonel Rawlings, now Colonel Rawlings, stepped forward with a microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're here today to honor a warrior. Colonel Robert Dalton served this nation for 22 years. He flew over 300 combat missions. He saved 17 lives under enemy fire. He was wounded in action 3 times, and on his final mission, he lost his left leg below the knee. But even then, even with his leg shattered, he flew his bird 23 miles to get his crew and his wounded to safety." Colonel Rawlings paused, his voice thick with emotion. But Colonel Dalton's legacy isn't just measured in missions flown or lives saved. It's measured in the people he inspired. His son, Lieutenant Colonel Derek Dalton, followed in his footsteps and became one of the finest fighter pilots in the Air Force. Captain Emily Webb, whose father Colonel Dalton tried to save 14 years ago, also became a fighter pilot. And now, at 11 years old, Tyler Dalton is already talking about following his father and grandfather into the sky. This is what legacy looks like, people. Not medals on a chest or plaques on a wall, but generations of warriors, each one building on the last, each one carrying forward the mission, each one understanding that we serve not for glory, but for each other. The crowd applauded. I stood there, overwhelmed, not knowing what to say. Then Tyler stepped forward, also in a Civil Air Patrol uniform, holding something wrapped in an American flag. "Grandpa, this is for you." He unfolded the flag to reveal a painting. It showed a Pave Hawk helicopter flying through a sandstorm, rotors kicking up dust, a crew chief on the minigun, and in the cockpit, visible through the windscreen, a pilot with determination etched on his face. Me, 20 years younger, in the middle of a combat mission. Below the painting, in careful script, it said, "Colonel Robert Dalton. He flew into hell so others could come home." "Tyler made this," Derek said quietly. "Spent 3 months on it. Used photos from your old albums. He wanted you to see yourself the way we see you, not as someone who's broken or failed, but as a hero. Our hero." I couldn't speak, just held that painting and looked at my grandson, this remarkable kid who'd lost his mother but gained something else. Purpose, direction, a legacy to carry forward. "Tyler, this is beautiful. Thank you." "You're welcome, Grandpa. I wanted you to know that you're my hero, even more than Daddy, because Daddy learned from you. Everything he is, everything he taught me, it all came from you." The ceremony continued. They unveiled a plaque that would be mounted in the CSR training center. They presented me with a shadow box containing my medals, my flight wings, a piece of the aircraft I'd been shot down in. And then the final surprise. Colonel Rawlings announced that the Air Force was establishing a new award, the Colonel Robert Dalton Rescue Valor Award, to be presented annually to the combat search and rescue pilot who best exemplified courage, skill, and dedication to the mission. The first recipient would be announced at next year's Air Force Ball. I thought about all the pilots who'd come before me, all the lives they'd saved, all the families they'd kept together, and now my name would be attached to an award recognizing that kind of courage. It was humbling, overwhelming, more than I deserved. After the ceremony, after the crowd had dispersed and it was just Derek, Tyler, and me standing in that hangar with the old Pave Hawk, Derek put his hand on my shoulder. "Dad, you spent so many years thinking you'd failed, thinking the men you couldn't save defined your career. But you were wrong. The men you did save, they went home. They had lives. They had families. Some of them became teachers, doctors, businessmen. One of them became a senator. Another became a firefighter who saved dozens of lives himself. The ripples of what you did, they're still spreading, still making a difference. That's success, Dad. That's what it means to serve." We stood there for a long moment, 3 generations of Daltons looking at that helicopter, that machine that represented so much. Sacrifice and courage and fear and love. Finally, Tyler said, "Grandpa, when I'm old enough, I want to fly rescue helicopters, like you. Not fighters like Dad. Rescue, because that's the most important job. Saving people." I knelt down to his level, my artificial leg creaking slightly. "Tyler, that makes me prouder than you can imagine. But you've got time to decide. You might change your mind. You might want to do something completely different. And that's okay too. The important thing isn't what you fly, or even if you fly. The important thing is that you find something worth dedicating yourself to, something bigger than yourself." "Can you do that?" "I can do that, Grandpa, because you showed me how." That summer, Derek surprised us with a trip. He'd arranged for a retired Pave Hawk, fully flight certified, to take us on a memorial flight. The pilot was a former student of mine from 20 years ago, now a lieutenant colonel himself. "Sir, it would be my honor to have you in my aircraft one more time." We flew over Nevada, over the desert I'd trained in decades ago. Tyler sat in the crew chief's seat, wearing a flight helmet that was too big for him, grinning from ear to ear. Derek sat in the co-pilot seat, and I sat in my old position, hands on the controls, feeling the familiar vibration of rotors turning. The pilot let me take the controls for a few minutes. Muscle memory took over, banking, turning, feeling the aircraft respond to my inputs. For those few minutes, I was 25 again, whole, unbroken, flying. As we circled back toward Nellis, I saw the base spread out below us. All those hangars, all those aircraft, all those people dedicated to the mission. And I realized something. My career hadn't ended when that RPG hit. It had transformed. I wasn't flying anymore, but I was still serving, teaching, guiding, showing Tyler and Derek and anyone else who'd listen what it meant to serve with honor. That was my mission now, and it was just as important as any combat rescue I'd ever flown. We landed as the sun was setting, painting the desert in shades of orange and purple. Tyler was bouncing with excitement. "Grandpa, that was amazing. Can we do it again?" "Maybe someday, buddy. Maybe someday." Derek helped me down from the aircraft, and we stood on the flight line watching the sun disappear behind the mountains. "You okay, Dad?" "Better than okay." That was exactly what I needed, to remember why I loved flying, why I chose this life, why I'd do it all again, even knowing how it would end. The years continued to pass. Tyler turned 12, then 13, then 14. He excelled in school, joined the high school JROTC program, started studying aerospace engineering. Derek continued commanding, mentoring, shaping the next generation of fighter pilots. Emily Webb was promoted to lieutenant colonel and selected for squadron command. The Webb twins started talking about following their mother into aviation. And I continued healing, continued growing, continued learning that strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting up, every single time. No matter how hard the fall, no matter how much it hurts, you get up. That's the only rule that matters. On a cool November evening, Derek and I sat on his back porch watching Tyler in the yard working on a model aircraft. Derek had just gotten news. He'd been selected for full colonel, and with it, command of an entire fighter wing. "Dad, I don't know if I can do this. It's so much responsibility. So many people depending on me." "Derek, I felt the exact same way when I made lieutenant colonel. I thought I wasn't ready, that I'd fail, that I'd let everyone down. What changed? I realized that leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about caring, about putting your people first, about making hard decisions and living with the consequences. You already do all of that. You've been doing it since Michelle died. Since you chose to become a pilot. Since you became a single father. You're ready, Derek. You've always been ready." Derek smiled, that same smile he'd had as a kid when I'd tell him he could do something he thought was impossible. "Thanks, Dad, for believing in me. Even when you were scared. Especially when you were scared. That's what love is. Believing in someone even when fear tells you not to. Your mother taught me that, and I'm passing it to you." 6 months later, I stood on the flight line at Nellis Air Force Base one more time. But this time, I wasn't watching Derek fly. I was watching Tyler. He'd just turned 16, had gotten his student pilot's license, and Derek had arranged for him to take his first flight in a small Cessna. Nothing fancy, nothing fast, just a kid and a plane and the sky. Tyler taxied out with his instructor, an older civilian pilot who'd flown fighters in Desert Storm. He lined up on the runway, advanced the throttle, and lifted off into the Nevada sky. I watched him climb, watched him bank left, watched him disappear into the afternoon sun, and I felt a completeness I'd never experienced before. 3 generations of Daltons, all pilots, all dedicated to the same mission, serving, protecting, flying into danger so others could live in peace. Derek stood beside me, his colonel's eagles gleaming on his shoulders. "What are you thinking, Dad?" "I'm thinking about legacy. About how what we do echoes beyond our own lives. About how every choice we make, every person we save, every lesson we teach, it all ripples outward, touching people we'll never meet, changing the world in ways we'll never see. Tyler's up there because you flew. You flew because I flew. I flew because someone before me showed me it was possible. That's legacy, Derek. That's immortality. Not living forever, but building something that outlasts you." Derek nodded slowly. "You know, I used to be angry at you, for trying to stop me from flying, for not supporting my dream. But I understand now. You weren't trying to hold me back. You were trying to protect me, because you loved me so much that the thought of losing me was unbearable. I get that now, because that's how I feel about Tyler. When he told me he wanted to fly, my first instinct was to say no, to protect him, to keep him safe. But then I remembered you, remembered how it felt when you finally let me chase my dream. the pride in your eyes when you pinned on my major's oak leaves, and I realized the greatest gift I could give Tyler is the same gift you gave me, permission to be himself, even if it terrifies me. Tyler landed 20 minutes later, a perfect touchdown. He taxied back to the ramp, shut down the engine, and climbed out with a grin that could have powered the whole base. "Grandpa, Dad, did you see? I flew." "We saw, buddy, we saw." "How was it?" "It was perfect. It was everything I dreamed it would be. I want to do it again, tomorrow, every day, forever." Derek laughed. "Slow down, Tiger. One step at a time. But yes, you'll fly again. You'll fly as much as you want, because you're a Dalton. And Daltons fly." That night, the three of us had dinner at my apartment. Nothing fancy, just burgers and fries and root beer. Tyler talked non-stop about his flight. The instructor let me do everything. Taking off, climbing, turning, even landing. He said I'm a natural. Says I've got good hands. That's from Grandpa and Daddy. It's in our blood. After Tyler went to bed in my spare room, Derek and I sat on my balcony, looking out at the Las Vegas lights. "Do you remember when I first told you I wanted to fly?" Derek asked. "You looked at me like I'd said I wanted to jump off a cliff. I thought I was protecting you. I thought if I could just keep you from making my mistakes, from walking my path, you'd be happier, safer. But I was wrong. Your path was never my path. Your mistakes were never my mistakes. You're your own person, Derek. You always have been. I just had to learn to let go." "I never thanked you for that," Derek said quietly. "For letting go. For supporting me even when it scared you. So I'm saying it now. Thank you, Dad. For everything. For teaching me to fly even though you never wanted me to. For being there when Michelle died. For raising Tyler when I was deployed. For showing me what real strength looks like. Not the never-breaking kind. The breaking and rebuilding kind. That's the strength that matters." We sat in comfortable silence, father and son, watching the city glow in the darkness. Finally, I said what I'd been thinking for years. "Derek, I'm proud of you. Not because you're a pilot, or because you've achieved rank, or because you've won medals. I'm proud of you because you're a good man, a good father, a good friend. You've taken everything life has thrown at you, the loss and the pain and the fear, and you've turned it into something beautiful. You've become someone Tyler can look up to, someone I look up to. That's real success, son. That's what it all means." Derek wiped his eyes. "Don't make me cry, old man. Too late." We both laughed, and in that moment, I understood something fundamental. Legacy isn't about monuments or medals or having your name on buildings. Legacy is sitting on a balcony with your son, knowing he'll pass on what you taught him to his son, who'll pass it on to his. Legacy is love in motion, traveling through time, touching lives you'll never meet. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything.